Welcome back to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I am your host, Kyle King. And the goal of this podcast is to help you create ecosystems and environments where people thrive. Look, today I'm excited. I'm excited about this conversation. We're having somebody on today that it's been a minute. Diana, we've been talking for a little while now. We haven't been able to get these dates down. But you are doing exceptional work. You've spent over a decade as a teacher, school leader, special education strategist, and ultimately helping schools around the country build inclusive, equitable systems that actually work, especially for students of color. And I just want to give you your flowers. You're doing phenomenal work. You're doing empowering work. And you're doing something that should be duplicated across the country. So I'm super excited to have this conversation. What gets you most excited about this season?
Yeah, well, thank you first for having
Yes.
me. Yes, it has been a lot of back and forth to try to get a date down. But what excites me was the question, right? What excites me this season? I think I've had more opportunities to get in front of different subsects of special education folks. So
Mm.
I've done a lot of work recently with co-teaching pairs, a lot more with paraprofessionals. And I think that makes me excited because it gives me hope that we're moving in a direction of not operating in silos of expertise, but
Yeah,
now figuring out how can we use what we know to actually work together with other important stakeholders to really show up and support the students that's in front of us.
why is that important?
Why is it not important? I think for anybody that's in school, especially on the elementary school level. So elementary is my jam, first of all,
Yeah.
but done a lot of work in middle and high school as well. And in elementary school specifically, we're seeing this year that we're having a great number of students that are coming into our buildings that are not even in special education that have high
Interesting.
needs. And
Interesting.
so we have a lot of general education teachers, a lot of leaders that are want to do more but don't know where to start. And
Yeah.
so where in the past we got away, quite honestly, with
Yeah.
special education teams owning their kids, we can't do that. In
Yeah.
order to really have the impact that we want, we have to make sure that we're imparting knowledge and also gaining knowledge from some of our best special general education teachers so that we're working collaboratively, regardless of if a student is identified in SPED or not. And that's where we're going to see the movement. That's where we're going to start to see change.
Of course. One of the challenges that I see and that I noticed even as a former school leader is that I think a lot of schools are great on the compliance side, but they struggle when it comes to improving instruction, improving blended learning and differentiation, and empowering teachers to be able to show up in the classroom on a day-to-day basis. What are things that leaders can do that are listening in that can improve the instruction just as much as we pay attention to the compliance?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. In was it November? I did a keynote down in Georgia with the special education administrators, and the topic that we went into was specifically how do we move from compliance to instruction.
Mm.
And special education leaders are so interesting because the typical special education leader is a whiz at systems, a whiz at compliance,
Yeah.
and sometimes when they don't feel as confident in instruction or in responding to student behavior, they can kind of get stuck in their bubble or their office of getting lost in the paperwork.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that we're creating opportunities to learn from our other school leaders, to go on collaborative walkthroughs so that we can talk to them about what does a manifestation of a disability really look like in this math class? And based off of what I know about a disability, how can we merge that with the learning and instruction that's happening? So that way, one, we're learning from each other.
Of
And
course.
now there's multiple people guarding this bar of excellence. But also, we are tag teaming what we're seeing in front of us in order to provide the most support to both the teacher and the student.
Let's talk about this for a second because special education is not easy. Um, and no shade to any teacher that's listening. And I feel like general education is it's not difficult. I feel like if you have a passion for the work, if you understand your subject matter, if you understand how to build relationships, and you could skate by
Mhm.
as much as possible. And still, if you're given a good enough population of students that don't really challenge you to the point of where you need to go, I feel like you can be able to really grow those students forward. And not
Mhm.
saying that teaching is easy, but even as a former teacher, I understand that it's a lot of the other things that make great teachers great.
Mhm.
But special education is a different beast.
Mhm.
Why this work? Why are you taking on this work and this challenge?
So I happenstance into special education. This wasn't something that I happenstance into teaching too, honestly.
Yeah.
Now, all this time I've been here, but I think I've always been a champion of the underdog. I
Mm,
love the outlier student that doesn't fit into the typical box of what we typically think of general education to be. Um, Special education, I don't think it's like this mystical thing. It's just good teaching.
that's
And
good.
I love when I meet general education teachers and we are able to have that aha moment and they realize that they already differentiate in certain ways
Yeah.
and they know how to identify a student that's struggling in a particular unit, even though they don't struggle across every topic that they introduce into the
Mhm.
classroom. And so that's what makes me excited and passionate about how to move from theory of special education to actual practice. What
Yeah.
does it look like when you have the student in front of you that wants to learn but doesn't have access to the content, right?
Exactly.
They're listening, they're trying their hardest, and they're just not succeeding. So, how can we get, a little creative?
Mhm.
What I love about special education is probably what frustrates most people, in that everything you think you know that's going to work for this student, it's always going to be a student that's going to test you, whether it's
Exactly.
behaviorally or academically. But it's how can we find that unique kind of puzzle and that formula that's going to reach and teach them so that way they stay engaged and that they love school, whether it's for math class or whether it's because they can't wait to show and tell at the next Free Choice Friday. So, yeah.
Mm. You said formula, and I really started to under like I guess my question is with formula. What is your formula? Like, what's your Monday morning test for whether a SPED system is healthy or unhealthy?
Yeah. I think my formula is authenticity. So what you see is what you get. If I
Yeah.
go in your classroom and something's off, you're probably gonna read it on my face
Yeah.
because it's just like, mm-mm.
Yeah.
For me, it's not about doing the right thing. It's not about being the best. It's about being well intentioned. I try to build trust with the folks that I coach to say that, hey, this is what I've learned from my experience. You want to try it? Or how do you feel about you doing your thing? Then I observe and then we talk about it to find a happy medium. Because I don't want teachers to be working all these hours outside of the school building. I don't want them to be stressed and resigning because they're burnt out. Right. I want you to identify the one strategy that you're going to work on embedding into your instruction this week. And then once you feel really good about that, then we'll add another strategy and then another one. So it's like, I'm a true believer of 1% changes. What's the 1% change that we can make that's going to have the larger impact over time instead of trying to build Rome in a day? Because that's not realistic or sustainable.
So let's talk about that. What is the 1% change? I'm a leader that's listening in right now. I recognize that our SPED system isn't as healthy or isn't as systemized as it needs to be.
Mhm.
Parents are continuously coming. We're getting complaints. All of these different things are happening. What is that 1% change that I can implement either today or tomorrow that can start to be able to compound forward?
I think first, know who your students are from a disability lens. So in this class of 30 students, and I have a caseload of maybe 12 to 15 with IEPs. How many of these students have ADHD? How
Mm,
many of these students have OHI because of ADHD or ERI or even specific learning disabilities?
that's good.
Once you're able to then group your students based off a disability, the next step is I tell people all the time Google's your best friend. How does specific learning disabilities manifest inside of my science classroom? Now you have a list of things to look out for. So then the next day, you have a little bit more patience. you understand that your student with ADHD is blurting out because one, it's a manifestation of their disability, but they're just super excited.
Exactly.
So what's the strategy that you can get them to chill a little bit?
Yeah.
And now they're not in trouble. You're not frustrated. And now we can actually get to the learning.
You talk a lot about mindset, and what I find oftentimes in these spaces is that it lacks accountability. How do you build accountability without creating that fear or shame or burnout amongst educators?
Yeah, I think accountability is hard. I hear a lot of accountability conversations come up when it comes to parents specifically, and educators being frustrated about what parents are not doing.
That's cool.
My background is mostly in Title I schools and communities that look like me.
Yeah.
And school and communities where parents are working, and they may or may not have gone to college themselves. I like to assume the best. I do believe that the typical average parent wants the best for their child. They just don't always have the resources or the knowledge or the know-how to help. And so when I think about mindset, and I led a PD a couple of weeks ago, and the paraprofessionals were saying, well, that's above our pay grade. And it's like,
that's where the problem starts.
It's like, okay, and now what? You're going to keep complaining, or we're going to figure out what isn't within the locus of our control to see the change that we want to see. So, and what I told them too is like, I'm not here to convince you to do your job. If I have to convince you to do that, this actually is not the place for you, and you need to consider another career. But I can let you know that this is really hard. People are trying the best they can with what they got. And so how are we going to make something shake? Because our kids still have to learn.
There's always going to be pushback though, Diana. And, you know, being in these seats, being in these spaces, there's always going to be people that don't believe, people that are making comments such as that, like this is above my pay grade or not within the scope of what I do. How do we as leaders create the culture within our organizations that are in support of what we have to do to be able to ensure that these students move forward?
I think when you have non-believers and naysayers, the best is to ground it in data. And I see that most often with behavior, right? They're like, well, we tried this, this, and that, and I don't think we should do this plan. Okay, show me the data, right? Yes, the behavior might be here, but did the duration, the frequency, the intensity decrease? Or maybe we learned that we thought we were doing the plan, but it actually wasn't happening with fidelity. So now we're talking about it. You're upset. I'm listening to you. I created the space for you to talk about it.
Yeah.
The data doesn't show it. How about now? You obviously can't observe yourself, but let's record a video, right? Let's record a video and we'll watch it together. And now I want you to write down the timestamps that you did the thing that you said you did.
That's good.
And typically they're like, oh, it's okay. Yeah. It happens to the best of us. And I think that's where the authenticity comes in. Like, I want people to come to me and say, I don't believe it. I want people to come and say, this sounds good, but I don't think it's actually going to work, because that's when the work starts to really happen versus a yes man that says, yeah, I can do that. And then you go observe them and they're still not doing it.
That's good. Now, a lot of times on these conversations, I want to hear some practical. And I recognize that you are the perfect person for someone listening in that wants potentially 2 or 3 coaching moves that they could use within the next 30 to 60 days, and they're seeing transformation. What are some coaching moves that can change teams across the board over that next 30 to 60 days?
I would definitely go back to unpacking the disability manifestation. So if a student has a specific learning disability, such as dyslexia, and looking at your lesson and anticipate where they're going to go wrong and write a simple question or prompt to help them out. If you know that a student has a communication impairment and they struggle with receptive information being communicated to them, how can you write a criteria for success or a checklist so that way they can navigate independently through a worksheet? right? So it's not to say that you're going to give them the checklist and then they can do it. That's not how things work. And I led a session today about that. Actually, we have to teach our students how to use the tools so that then they can use it independently.
That's good.
I think so. Unpack disability so that way you can plan in advance to prompt students out of the error, giving them resources such as the checklist, a visual that they can refer back to. And what's another practical strategy? It depends on what's going on. So that was too academic. Let's talk behaviorally a little bit. I would say collect behavior data, specifically around the behaviors that you're seeing. So that way you can identify the highest leverage one to go after. So oftentimes I'll talk to teachers and they'll say, well, they're just turned up. And I'm like, okay, but are they turning up all day, every day? And they're like, well, no. Okay, great. So I want you to break the school day down by block. And I want you to tally the behaviors that you see, whether it's blurting out, eloping from their seat, eloping from the classroom, inappropriate language, whatever. Because then we'll be able to identify, one, what are the top behaviors that we want to go after next? Because, for instance, if a student is eloping or misusing objects because they're throwing them, I would rather prioritize that over cursing because the cursing at least is nonviolent.
Yeah.
Then I want us to start looking at the times. Is it certain times of the day that's more challenging? Is it with certain people that's more challenging? And then we can come up with a more clear support plan. One of my favorites always is with elementary schools and middle schools where they're like, they always come back on certain weekends, just crazy. And naturally, I'm a very inquisitive and curious person, but it's because I like to understand people. And so I'll meet with the parent and I'm saying, so how's it like with so-and-so at home with you and dad? Oh, well, we're separated and they go to dad's house on the weekends. So now we need to talk to daddy because he needs to get it together over the weekend because we're not about to be fighting every Monday morning. So questions, data, that's how we start making movement. We can't just go off of feelings because that's just not helpful.
I want you to talk to the leader. Like, what do they need to stop doing right now? Because I think there's a lot of mindset challenges. There's a lot of predetermined ideologies. There's a lot of things that leaders are doing on a daily basis, and it's maybe comfortable or they're maybe used to doing that, but it's truly hurting the potential foundation that could be built.
Stop talking about it and be about it. I had worked with a past principal and she always talked about how she builds through the work. And I didn't understand it then, but it's something that has really been transformational as a leader and as a coach that just pops in, right? What does it mean when on the first days of school, we're worried and I'm on the ground with you with the kid that is nonverbal and having a tantrum, right? I'm getting a little brownie points, a little buy-in from you because I'm walking it with you. What does it look like as a leader where your teacher comes to you and say, I tried everything, I don't know what to do? To say, hey, I'm actually going to come in your classroom and I'm going to model this part for you so that you can see it and we can discuss it. Far too often, we have people talking at teachers and not really being in work with them. And I tell people all the time, I don't offer a strategy or a suggestion that I have not done myself. I've been bit and scratched and had the confusing kid. I've done it so I can talk about it. I'm not scared of that. And while nobody wants to be in that situation, it's easier to navigate the hard stuff in education when you're with your people shooting in the gym.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Let's say a principal's listening right now or a district leader, and they only remember one sentence. What should it be?
Whew. Be the leader that you needed.
Tell me more.
Everyone remembers in their first few years of teaching, one, how difficult it was.
Yeah.
And however your leadership was showing up, you were like, I just wish they did this. Even when you have to make the hard decision, even when you don't know what to do, be upfront and honest and be the leader that you needed in your first few years. And that will go the long way with teachers and with parents, honestly. Be honest.
Diana, outside of the work that you do, who are you? Like, how would you define, or how would one of your best students or a spouse or a best friend describe who you are?
Well, that was an unexpected question. Who am I outside of work? I'm someone that's very intentional. Like I said, very inquisitive. I like when I'm meeting new people with my friends or they're introducing me to their friends, they're like, okay, beware, Diana asks a lot of questions. I'm like, yep. But if I'm asking too many questions, just tell me and I'll fall back. Yeah. I like to know what people are thinking, why they're thinking it. I love a sucker for reality TV. And it's because I think and overthink so much that it's the only time that I can turn my brain off. So I love a good reality TV show. I love a good Tyler Perry show, no matter how bad.
Oh, I don't know about that one, Diana. But it's about you. It's not about me.
I watch it to enjoy it. I'm not a critique.
It's really
entertaining. And I love to eat. So that's pretty simple.
What's one thing in this season that scares you? Something that you're building, something that you're wanting to accomplish, something that you wish you would have started earlier?
I think it's my most recent offer, the SPEDucated Collective. It feels scary, and it's a coaching cohort to meet teachers and leaders where they are, so that way we can have coaching conversations to navigate some of these tricky moments. That feels scary. It feels scary because it's new. Okay. And it's just the unknown. I don't know, but I'm super excited for it because I love to have the conversations with people. I love, and like the part of the collective, they get access to our resource library that has tons of different PDs and trainings and templates that are downloadable. I love creating that stuff and I want to share it and get it out to more people. But yeah, I don't know.
So
scary.
I want to unpack it though. Where is the fear coming from? Because the thing that I love about you is that you're not just a person that has done the work, you're a person that's lived the work, right? You have the proven success, you have the accolades, you have the impact stories and the testimonials. Even in this conversation, the level of depth and how you were able to pull out all of the academic side, the behavior side, you have it. So I guess I asked this question from an overarching standpoint. When there's a leader, a high achieving leader that has driven change, that have done things, what do you believe is stopping them from really being able to scale their impact or scale their leadership? And what would be the message that you wish you heard today?
I think what's difficult is it requires you to show up differently. So like even in some of the work I do with districts, I always like to do a baseline observation so that I can see teachers in action, get to know their personality, see how they, flow with kids. And sometimes at the scale you need to work and produce, you can't show up in that way. It's not sustainable. And like even now, like I feel like I'm just recovering from the burnout of last year. And so it's how can you continue to do the work with boundaries so that way you're not overextending.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I would tell folks. Like we do really, really important work. However, we are not curing cancer. The work will be here tomorrow. And sometimes we have to prioritize rest because we can't continue to pour into others to show up for our kids and our families if we're barely showing up for ourselves.
I really appreciate you stating that point, that doing something different requires us to show up differently. And, we've launched the Contagious Culture Conference for October of this year. We're planning for 800 plus attendees in the nonprofit and educational space. And for someone that's done events with a couple hundred people or 200-300 people, this is different. And the conversations that I'm having with speakers, the conversations that I'm having with sponsors, thinking that we may be paying somebody $100,000 to come speak. It's just like these numbers are just out of this world. And it's requiring me. And my prayer lately has been, God, help me become the person that can actually pull this off. So when you said that, I really resonated with it, because this is something that scares me, because it's what will happen after, if this is successful. When this is successful, like what will happen? Who will I be? Who will I have to continue to maintain to be? And how can I ensure that I'm becoming that person in stages, so that I don't feel like I'm grieving who I thought I was in this season?
100%.
What would be your message to me, or what would be your message to so many people that's probably listening in that feel exactly that same way?
Yeah, I actually did a lot of work with that with my therapist, of the grieving who you were to become who you want to be and who you need to be to fulfill your purpose. And even when thinking about fear, she always provides me with this powerful reframe of, you're scared. Why are you scared? And it can't be that you're going to fail, right? Because what evidence from your past shows that you have failed? Even when things do not work out for you, you have the ability to pivot and still make it work out.
Still make it work.
And so she always says that, and I'm like rolling my eyes, because I don't want to hear that. I just don't want to be. I don't have time to being scared of trying new things. And she's like, it's okay. Fear is in the passenger seat. I said, actually, I want fear to be in the trunk, because taking up too much room. But it's okay. You do it scared. That's it. You just do it.
When you think about the next 12 months, when we come back on here for session 2, for season 2, what would you have wanted to accomplish that would have made all of this work worthwhile?
I want to be able to bring on additional team members so that we can increase our impact even more. And when I say additional team members, specifically Black women too, because that's something I'm really passionate about creating opportunities for Black women, working with more schools, and not feeling burnt out, because I'm not trying to do it all by myself.
Diana, this was powerful. And you didn't just I love that you did not just give us inspiration. You gave us a standard. Like, you helped us understand that, yes, compliance and all of the SPED work is necessary, but it's not enough. And if we're serious about this work, if we're serious about growing something, if we're serious about students with disabilities, we have to build systems, and we have to put people in place, and we have to have the heart to really change instruction, and not just for documentation. And then you helped us really understand that, look, in order for us to be able to make that change, for us to be able to impact those students or impact these schools, we have to be different. And it starts with mindset. It starts with behavior. It starts with habits. So where can people connect with you and learn more about your work, so that 12 months from now, you have these team members and you rocking out?
Definitely. So you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram at the SPEDucated Leader. So that's the SPEDucated Leader. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Diana R. Williams. I also have a podcast. It's called Lead SPED Better, available on Apple and Spotify. Give me a shout, DM me. I love to talk about this stuff.
Let's do it. And hopefully we get to see you speaking at the Contagious Culture Conference.
I would love to.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Family, if this episode gave you life like it has for me, if it's giving you language clarity or the confidence to do this work better, we want you to do one thing. We want you to support Diana. We want you to subscribe to her podcast. We want you to purchase her products, and we want you to continue to amplify her message. One of the questions that we always ask on the Contagious Culture podcast is, what type of culture are you spreading? The energy you bring is the culture you create. So you got to make yours worth catching. This is the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm with the amazing, the SPEDucator, Diana, and we will talk to you guys next episode.